Man, look, I literally just walked upstairs, turned the monitors on, flipped the stream on, and just started talking. So, uh, today is Wednesday. Gosh, the beginning of prayer month. As we're going to talk about it here, and man, just wanted to chill out. Didn't want to have to think about anything too heavily. No, we're not going to do any Bible readings, but I definitely wanted to get on, especially after last night's stream. Last night's stream was pretty awesome. Um, Awesome because it was about a topic I thought it was important. Awesome about how many people showed up. Awesome that I had some buddies in the chat or buddies on the stream with me, and it's just that's just pretty cool. That's just pretty cool, and I appreciate it. And I thought it was, maybe I'll get into it. So um, we brought Nick on, and that was great. I'd reached out to him because we go back before the YouTube channel, like I said, and going to the YouTube channel, like I'd said, and I didn't pay much attention to it. I mean, we thought it was hilarious. We were all kind of fans of what was going on and following it, and he kind of had the legal acumen to really understand what was going on with the Dick Masterson and Maddox lawsuit. We were all kind of following it less fans, and we thought it was hilarious that he did this stream. And so we paid attention to it. Some people followed it, and I just kind of, I thought it was great, and I knew he was doing well, but I mean, it wasn't really something I was following. But my ADHD, I'm always listening to something. I've got an audio book on. I've got talk radio on. I've got something, just kind of occupying my mind as I'm doing some analysis on things, as I'm, writing a report, as I'm doing whatever it is I got to do. If I'm out climbing on trucks, which is what I was doing for 12 hours today, it feels like having something to listen to. And my outside of some audiobooks, what I normally listen to, and I talked about it last night, was the Rush Limbaugh program. Dad got me started on that when I was a kid. I thought he was funny. I didn't always agree with what he talked about, but what I liked about him is he said a lot of things that I did agree with, and he never seemed to be in a bad mood. Everything was kind of just, it was happy, right? It was always good to listen to. So he got sick about a year before he died, and so he was out a lot. So his show, wasn't on, and I'm not a big fan of it. A lot of his guests are like meh. Mark Stein's pretty funny, but I was coming back home on a work trip, and I was driving through the mountains, and I was like, I need something. I want something to listen to, and I don't feel like listening to music. Don't really feel like listening to an audiobook because I'll see what Nick's got. And so I put one of Nick's live streams on that was on replay, obviously, and I was like, huh, this is pretty funny. This is pretty funny. So I started listening to it more and more, especially with the Limbaugh Pro show going out. So now it's gotten to the point now where I listen to his shows on replay. I'm listening to most streams during the day as I'm going through my workday, and I think that's pretty cool. I think I was talking about that. What was really cool was when he was doing the Rittenhouse trial, and my father-in-law, who's 70, who's in his late 70s, my father-in-law came up into my man cave up here, and we were watching the trial several days. Just had his stream on while he was streaming the Rittenhouse trial, and it was just really cool because he thought he was hilarious too. It's amazing. So I think it's pretty cool. And that kind of got me. And before that had happened, it had kind of gotten into my mind that Nick's doing really well about this. Maybe I can take a shot at it. And so this is kind of like an origin story on how this channel got started, and how little distance it's traveled in the time I've been doing it. But I saw it. I was like, I can probably stream on something. Then I was like, and I talked to some of our mutual friends. And I was like, hey, let's get something together. We really couldn't think of a topic, and so I kind of let it die down a little bit, and then I can't even remember what made me think about it. But oh, I know what it was. I I was looking online just to see, and I don't remember what motivated me, but looking online to see, people, why does God exist? Does God exist? Stuff like that. Looking it up and saw that there's a lot of Christian streams out there, or not really streams, a lot of Christian videos on YouTube, and they're very prepackaged. They're very, I don't know, marketed, focus grouped. It's their productions, right? And I mean, I guess that works for some people, but I feel like hearing somebody, if you're interested in hearing about Christianity, you I don't see how hearing it from something that's prepackaged and produced is more authentic than just hearing somebody who believes in God just talking about it. Because when you walk in, eventually the whole focus is to get you into a church, and when you get into a church, if you're getting connected the right way, I mean, you should be in some sort of small group or Sunday school where you're talking with other people and fellow congregants about about God, about the Bible, about your life, about your struggles, about struggles with your family, about what's going on, and you're going to hear from other people talking about the same thing. And this is that's what this should be. That's what the stream should be. It's somebody talking about God, like what I'm interpreting is going on with the Bible, what I think about abortion, what I think about, you know, um, Second Samuel, is it Second Samuel, First Samuel, whatever, where God basically says, you don't want a king. If you want this, you don't want government outside of me. Um, there's a lot of opinions, and I have some opinions, and other people have opinions. So I thought, it's like, man, one of the things I've always felt that I did poorly is discipleship, right? Talking to other people about God, because it feels really weird. I've talked about this on stream before. When you have when you talk about reaching out to somebody to ask them about God, to me, it's very awkward. It's very awkward because you feel like you're cold calling somebody, and that and it's just weird. You feel awkward, they feel awkward, and there's like this thing. However, if somebody comes up to me and has a question, or it's just like, hey, you go to church, blah 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 blah, I can go right into that, and I feel perfectly comfortable because I feel like I've been invited into somebody's curiosity, and from there I can talk. I can't shut up about it. So that's what I thought to myself. I said, man, um, maybe I'll just do these live streams, kind of like how Nick does it. Do these live streams, and then from there, if somebody wants to check it out, they can, because they've chosen it. I'm not walking up to somebody, hey, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Let's talk about that. Give them a creepy stare, and then weird them out to the point where they think we're all cultists. Nin- Nirnaeth Arnoid Arnodiad. Hope I read that right, or at least did an honorable job trying to. Modern church plays numbers games, always trying to get bigger. This makes things seem too big, complex, and unapproachable. In reality, it is much simpler, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Like I said, I'll go to a small church. I believe in the small church. I don't like, and this is part of me, the introduction. Deacon at a small church, not a pastor. I'm not a theologian. I'm not trying to get you to join my church, but I am interested in getting you into church. I'm non-denominational Protestant. That means the way I consider it and the way I talk to other people, it's like free range chickens, right? We're kind of just running around. We don't have a chicken tractor or a small coop like you would see in an institution like the Southern Baptists or the Lutherans or the Methodists or something like that. We aren't part of some chicken farming colony like you would see in the big guys like the Catholics and the Orthodoxy. And that's nothing against them. Like some people thrive in that condition, but it's a double-edged sword each way you look at it. And I feel much more comfortable in a small setting, very community based, community oriented, where you know the people who are coming in, and you are ultimately responsible for um, the direction of that church, um, and even as a congregant. And that's something you don't get to do much when you're part of these. And the bigger that church organization is, the smaller your voice is getting. The congregation can speak. We have an elder led church, so that to me, Nick's is a big problem with if you've got a preacher kind of running the show. That's another thing I don't particularly like. Other people, it works out well for them. That's fine. I don't care as long as you just keep the fundamentals of God's teaching and commandments in play and don't try to change it and mess with it at all. And that's one thing I've learned through doing this stream has been, we talk about, me and Raph, who was on the show last night, we joke about it. He's Roman Catholic. I'm a non-denominational Protestant. You couldn't get, I mean, there's a big wide gap on that spectrum. As far as, and he likes that discipline. Aprende con flowers. Hey, hi, I saw you on Nick's stream a while ago. I really like what you're doing. Keep it up. I actually haven't been on Nick's stream. He was on mine last night. I was the night stream last night because he came on my show. Thanks for the encouragement. I do intend to keep it up. I've been doing this since late November, I think. Late November, after pondering on it probably for 6 months. Doing it since late November. I looked at it. I think this is video number 140 or close to 140 videos. I like it. I got some people who come on. I get some likes. I kind of just like what I'm doing. And anybody, and who knows? Maybe, a year from now, somebody stumbles across my videos about the Bible read through and it gets them into it. But thank you. I have been on Nick's stream once before, but I was kind of an extra. It was back in the days where he was doing the Diablo 3 speed runs. And we because he streams so late, I'm usually asleep. But it's one of those moments where I'm in the chair late one night, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna doze for a second. And you wake up, and you're like, huh, and it's like 3 a.m, and so that happened to me. And he and he was playing, so I was like, yeah, I'll run through. And I was like, hey, can I join in? He goes, yeah, sure. And I didn't know he was streaming. And then I got on, caught it, and that was pretty good. We were talking about homeschooling last night. I have seen he has a friend of his that did come on because he's starting a charter school. I was very interested in that episode, but that was a different person. That was not me. I don't have a charter school. Our church hosts a very good Christian private Christian school, but I'm a big proponent of charter schools, big proponent of Christian schools, big proponent of Heath, big proponent of homeschooling. And the more I hear about them, that's fine. I'm just glad you're here. Big proponent of it. I think the more independent we get out of this, just because of the monstrosity that the public education system has become. And you hear people who can talk about it intelligently, and you can get a panel on of people who can. And not only the people who are in the trenches doing it, like Nick and his family, but also people who are products of it, like Christian Mario, like Raph. And then they're two different. I think they're probably 15 years apart in age. So it's interesting. I mean, those two people, you could see they're talking. I mean, these aren't awkward people. This isn't what the stereotypical homeschool person is. Stereotypical isn't probably even fair at that point. Or what people have pigeonholed um, homeschooled kids to be, which is awkward and aloof and autistic in many ways, backwards, with weird, judgmental, overly cautious parents who don't let them do anything. No, this is you do have cautious parents, rightfully so. We have plenty of evidence of that right now. But we see these people are products of homeschooling back when it was way more stigma behind it. And look at both of them. College, one's a college student, one's a college graduate. They're both doing well, and they can articulate and talk about how much they loved being homeschooled. And you see people who their um, enjoy their experience. And I think that speaks for itself. One of the things I'm not a very good salesman. I'm not a very good salesman. It's not my job, thankfully. But I have been in positions where I've had to present a product, and it's difficult to do when the product is maybe not the best out there. But when a product sells itself, it's super easy to sell it to other people because you can talk about it with confidence. And that's what I think homeschooling is. That's why I think charter schools are good. And that's why I think that if you've got a solid private school pitch and you've got a solid program, it's easy. Why? The people who do it are happy with the results. The people who are homeschooled are happy with the results, and the people who are, I guess, profiting off of it, like an employer or a school, like a higher learning school, they like it. So if everybody's happy with it, maybe the folks who are telling you it's dumb, maybe that's where the ulterior motive is, and that's where it's easy to see. Nernaeth says, blame the breaded memory. It'll get you. It'll get you. Y'all said most of those really strict parents mellowed out often years after kids were gone, but it happened. It does. I mean, you have your first kid. I mean, if I don't know if any of y'all are parents, I'm assuming that at least some of y'all are. You get that first kid, and everything is scared, right? Scared about everything, every little thing he does, and the second one comes in after that, and you're like, oh yeah, I've already been through this. Already been through this. Still never get. Still, um, the thing that got me the most was going into your kid's room if they've taken a longer than normal nap, because I was always worried about SIDS, always worried about SIDS, and going in and finding my kid not breathing right. Because you go in there, they're super still. You can't even see their chest rising or whatnot. You get as close as you can until you can hear them breathing, and then it's just like the biggest feeling of relief. That's what it was like for me. And I don't think that that's necessarily a ridiculous a ridiculous fear. My ridiculous fear was when my son was born, my first kid. That I was worried that everybody who was holding them was going to drop him because he's just like this little thing, and you hold on. It just feels like you just slip out of there like a bar of soap or something like that, and then he's going to crash on the floor, and he's just going to be a stain. So, yeah. The worst part of it was, um, I had we were there, and obviously we're in the hospital room because he's only like a day old, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I'm in the bathroom there in the hospital room. The door's closed, and I'm still very well into this fear. This what feels like an irrational fear now, but it was very real at the time. And then I have a family member comes in, and this family member is very struggles with some substance abuse. Um, does have a very um, under the influence affect to them almost all the time, and has some clumsiness. They come into the room, and I hear their voice, and I'm not. I'm not taking a whiz, guys. I'm well into a man's place of contemplation, right? And so I'm like, oh no, 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 what's going on? She's like, let me hold the baby. No! I'm like trying to scream it from the other room. Don't let her touch that child, but at the same time, that would be very hurtful to them. And it's just kind of like you had to just had to ride that one out. And nothing happened. Obviously, he is a very happy and healthy kid, and I couldn't thank God more for that. So I've got what StreamYard says. I don't always trust StreamYard. StreamYard says we got 10, 11 people viewing this stream right now, which is great. That's a big improvement for me. I've got four, uh, three people commenting in the chat. Just want you to know, I try to be as interactive with the chat as possible. Last night was a very big, um, was um, more than I could have imagined, and it was way more than I could have kept up with, especially when I was trying to let the guests speak and let them get their presentation out. But normally, especially when it's just me, or if it's me and Eric Rollon doing our co-streaming or co-hosting, we're reading chats pretty regularly and responding to them very well. And so if you chat like what you're doing, you will there will be interaction. That's one of the things I wanted. That's one of the things I wanted most. But um, that's what this channel really is all about. It's I want to hear from you guys what y'all think when we talk about issues with Christianity. That I probably will do. Nunath, I will probably do that. Mr. Congratulations on your sobriety. Um, I I have a side of my family that struggles mightily with various types of substance abuse, from just plain alcoholism to I have a family member who has an opioid is recovering from an opioid addiction that has gotten real bad, and he has recently the last time I saw him, he looked much better, much better, and so I just hope he can keep that up. He's got a woman who's helping keeping him straight. That's one of the things that worry that helps us as men, is sometimes to have somebody at home, like a lady, like kids, um, but ones that are not afraid to hold us accountable, and that we can, and where we are the type of men who will respond to those challenges when they identify our faults. Do it in a loving way, but doing it in a hard way. He needs that, and he's getting that. And like I said, hopefully that sticks, because it's usually not when you're in the middle of your usage that kills you. It's usually the relapse, and you go back in and you take as much as you used to be able to tolerate, and then it's too much, and you die. So let's see. My biggest worry is substance abuse. I've already discussed this with my husband, and he is aware that I may be overly cautious of everyone. Okay, so that same side of the family, there was he has since passed away, a father figure who was a rageaholic and an alcoholic, and he was very abusive. And the one of the children of said father is incredibly sensitive to it, and I understand. But because we've had that kind of in our past, um, I generally moderate, but I will still tie one on from time to time. But it's good. It's kind of like riding a motorcycle. If you're a motorcycle enthusiast like me, it's respecting the power of the bike and the danger that is always present. Oh, oh, okay, okay. You're talking about you're still talking about um, public school, that kind of abuse, the abuse in public school. Sorry, we were talking about substance abuse, and I saw essay, and I just naturally thought that that's what you were referring to, Apprende. Um, sorry. Porcupine Mayhem. We're 2 years into homeschooling. My own oldest just graduated from children's ministry to youth ministry tonight. Praise God. Excellent. Excellent. But make sure that you tell them to be cautious and vigilant, because youth ministry is so important. But youth ministry is important. But when you're an older, just a little bit older, and you're ministering to adolescents, um, then sometimes you can have adolescents become infatuated, and that can create problems. We've seen that before. So, um, your Nath, it's rough. Know a dude who lost 10 years to addiction, hit rock bottom, and had to start over. He's doing very well and telling people not to do the same now. I mean, that's all you can do. I mean, that's my biggest fear for my kids. Well, not my biggest fear. Biggest fear is apostasy for them, but a big fear that they'll run into it, because they're going to have to eventually make these choices themselves. And I hope I can just get them to say, look, this will ruin your life, and it can make you a shell of the person you used to be. And nothing feels worse, more powerless than that as a parent, just seeing, or as a friend, or as anybody who's close to somebody, and see a husk of a person that you used to enjoy and love and see so much life in them, and then they're not, because they're so dependent. MR, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a huge plus with somebody. That's y'all are talking in the chat. That's great. I don't, as far as what's allowed on YouTube, don't care. I don't really care so much. But if they let it, I'll let it on here. The big things, we don't blaspheme, don't take the name in vain, the Lord's name in vain, and that's pretty much it. We'll talk about all sorts of different stuff. I do have to kind of parse it a little bit, because this is something I do on the side as a hobby. I enjoy it, but I do have to worry about the wrong person seeing this and then showing it to an employer if they ever find out, which I'm sure that somebody will if they do enough research and dig deep enough, and then somebody goes, "Oh, look what you said." You won't see me reading any unbreaded, at least not until I'm independently wealthy. But you will see, I will definitely be with you guys watching unbreadeds and stuff like that. I have a dark sense of humor, and I appreciate it. A lot of people really don't know how to react to it, don't know how to deal with it, and that's fine. No, it's not. Um, and I'm glad you found your way back, Nernath. And yeah, funny enough, you're a bit more traditional than you started. That's not surprising. It's almost like being born again. I guess you're found again, lost and found again. Um, you tend to revert back to the fundamentals, because the fundamentals are what put you back in. That's one of the things I say. We look at the Old Testament. We're in our Bible readings. We're on the back end of Deuteronomy. So we're really getting into. We're at the end of the Exodus. Moses is sending the Israelites over into the Promised Land, and we're really going to get into the meat of the Old Testament, where we see a lot of Israel being powerful, being faithful, screwing up, getting punished, screwing up some more, being faithful, getting back into God's good graces, screwing up again, doing the same things we do. And but what is it? Why do they always screw up? I mean, even when we're looking at King David, when we're looking at King Solomon, some of the most powerful and most influential pre-Christian or pre-Christ folks. And why did they fall? What were their big missteps? Not paying attention to the fundamentals, not adhering to the fundamentals. What? And that's one of my favorite sayings to my kids. Why are the reason fundamentals are called fundamentals is because they are fundamental. You think about it when they're practicing. When I'm practicing with my son for soccer, it's just like there's certain things you've got to do. Remembering when you're playing goalie, different. You've got to be paying attention. You have to be in your stance. You have to know when to charge, when to fall back. You just got to practice those things, and understand, you know, what the fundamentals are behind it. And Christianity is a lot like that. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up, but we've got the grace aspect, and that helps us. If I'm the end of Deuteronomy, I missed the badger skins. You can always go back and look at the older episodes. There was one, and my son was actually up there, but my son was actually up here. He wanted to see one of my streams, and so normally on Fridays, I still stream on Fridays generally. Haven't for the while because he's had soccer practice and it's just way too much going on. But soccer's over with for the summer. But this was before that. We do family movie night, so we all come up here, we watch a movie together, and then they'll have a sleepover. And and so he wanted to see me stream, so I was like, okay, I'm doing a stream tonight. I was doing the stream of Moses coming down from Sinai and seeing the absolute insanity that was the Israelites and their stupid golden calves. And that was meant to be a 3-chapter night. It was a 1-chapter. I think it's an hour-long rant of me talking about how stupid the Israelites have to be, that Moses can't just leave them for a few days without them losing their damn religion, literally. And he was giggling the whole time, and he wasn't able to understand a lot of it, but he did get to see his dad pretty hyped up about it. So if you're going to go back and look at one of those streams, I would look at that one. Exodus. I'm not good with memory verses, so my husband and I have been discussing the difference between Unitarians and Trinitarians. Any thoughts? I have to look up Trinitarians. I don't know much about Trinitarians. Unitarians, I have zero respect for. I have more respect for someone who is Muslim or Hindu, and those are two religions I have zero respect for. I have more respect for them because at least they've gotten a religion and have attached to it. They've got some sort of point of faith and attached to it. The Unitarians is like, oh, everybody's right. Well, it's all how you get there. And the Episcopalians and a lot of these more modernized churches, they're just a deeper shade of Unitarian that's got more Jesus in it. But I don't know what Trinitarians are. I'm learning more as I'm doing this because I'm very much a layperson, so I'm learning more. And what I'm doing things on, bringing people on from different denominations. The plan is, anyway, bring people on from different denominations, kind of just talk about what their denomination is all about at its fundamental point and what they struggle with, because they're all struggling with the same thing. Catholicism, if you're a Roman Catholic, you know what you're dealing with, but you might not know that the Lutherans are dealing with the same thing, or you might not know that the evangelists, what are they called? The evangelists are dealing with the same evangelicals. Sorry, evangelicals. They got all sorts of problems. Most of them are the same thing. So the evangelicals have their own brand of big church problem, which is that it's a grift in the worst way. And our Deuteronomy is a bunch of prescriptive Jewish law and directions for building the tabernacle, temporary temple, and it goes into much detail. Badger skins is one of the most memorable parts. Deuteronomy is mostly a rehashing, and from the way I read it, is mostly a rehashing of Leviticus and Numbers. It's Moses talking about. He's basically giving his final speech to the Israelites. So he's led them out of Egypt. and for 40 years they've all been traveling together, and now he's not allowed to go into the promised land because he did something he wasn't supposed to. um but he's getting ready to send the next generation of Israelites into the promised land, and so he's having this, this final word with the group, and he's just trying to remind them, this is the rules, this is what God said. He established a covenant with us. He wants us to do it. If we do things, we'll be rewarded. If we don't, we'll be punished. It's very much a almost feels like the older brother, um or the mentor who's letting the younger protege or younger sibling go. And it's just like, just remember to do this, just remember to do this, and you'll be okay. And he knows that they're going to screw up because they haven't done anything but screw up the entire time he's been with them. When literally God's presence and the ark and the column of flame and all the different miracles that are done, they're all going on, and they still can't help it. Lay knowledge is enough. As someone who did a lot of religious study and apostasy, I can tell you that spreading the truth is learning it is much simpler than you think. You don't need a PhD. No one cares how much you've studied if they have a genuine desire to learn and know truth. That's true. We talk about it a lot of times. You have a lot, and you'll see it a lot on Christian Twitter, which is which can oftentimes be a circular firing squad of people who are probably very good people to talk the Bible about, except for when you put them on the internet and have them disagree with each other. Um, but you can take any of the Theo bros on there, and you can put them up next to your grandmother who's attended church her entire life, and she'll out Christian them every day, any day of the week. And she's never cracked a theology book. She's never done anything more than go to her Wednesday night groups and her Sunday sermons. And she prays to God every night. She probably prays every morning and does that kind of stuff. She doesn't know much, but she knows the Bible, and the Bible is our instruction. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing it, because I don't have much to fall back on other than, like, I'm 39. I'm 39 years old. I'm rounding the corner, but I've been in the church all my life. Well, I haven't been in the church. I've been in the faith all my life. I had a point where I had a bad experience at church, so I walked away from church from a time. But when I came back, it was specifically because I wanted my kids to grow up in church, and because I knew that I couldn't give a positive Christian influence on them alone. I needed them to be surrounded by it with people, not just dad, um, not just dad, but also dad's friends, and the kids I'm going to Sunday school with, and all this other stuff. It's not just me, and my wife at the time, when we first started dating. She was agnostic. When we got married, she was agnostic. She wasn't all that interested. She says her and it's one of the most it's my proudest moment. I got my proudest moment, and I'm still not necessarily convinced it's true. But she says the reason that she came to Christ was because of my example and my steadfastness and the principles and foundations of it. It was a drawing factor. I think the big help was giving birth to a life. And so and one of the most powerful things you can experience is becoming a parent. And you look at your kid and you're like, this is what this is all about. This is love. And being a parent absolutely changes your perspective on the Bible, because now you can see it through the eyes of God. See people through the eyes of God, because you understand, this is my kid. I created him, and I'm watching him do all these things. And then even sometimes when I'm disciplining my kid, I'm talking, or I'm giving him a lecture on what they like, and I'm sitting there talking about it, and then the back of my mind at the same time, I'm sitting there going, you do the same stuff. God is sitting there tapping his toes, tapping his feet at you, looking down at you like an unimpressed parent, because you're getting on your kid for the same things you will do core concept wise, but you're doing it on a bigger scale. And so I have to pull back sometimes, but it changes that perspective. It ends up, you understand grace, you understand unconditional love, you understand the desire for people who do dumb things, screw up all the time, you understand the desire to want them to get redemption. And I think that, I think that had a great deal of impact on my wife. So when, but I basically said, you know, when we moved back into town, into my hometown, and I was back close to where some of my friends were going to, church. I said, I'm going to church. I'm taking our son with me. And she didn't really have any qualms about it, except for the fact that we were still in that overprotective parent mode. So eventually she started coming, and, she just wanted to sit in the nursery, and I'm just here. And then she goes, I'm just here to listen to the sermon. I'm not getting involved with Sunday school, and I just enjoy the music because we do. Who's a very close friend of ours now. We do have a gal who can sing at church, and she does a really good job. And she's just beautiful to listen to. And she goes, I'm just going to listen to the music, and I'm just going to listen to the sermon. And then it's okay. I'm going to show up to Sunday school now with you, but I'm not going to be involved. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be volunteering for things. And now she runs sound at for our worship time. She runs the sound. Or she doesn't run. No, she doesn't run sound. She does the. She's big under the AV. She's running the slides. She's managing the camera and all that other stuff. So, and so she is very much now to the point where, when I have, points where, my biggest fear is that everything that I believe in is wrong. That's my biggest fear. I have faith that I'm right, but I'm afraid that I'm wrong and that there's nothing after this. And I think that that's an awful thing to contemplate, but not necessarily just for my own sake, because there are people out there who are better than me, who are more righteous, more deserving of eternal paradise, and they wouldn't get it. And so that's my big fear, just so that's out there for everybody. But when I have those moments and usually it's late at night and everything, she's the one who's like, she's around death a lot, and she's there to say, no, I've seen, from what I've experienced being around people at the end, there's no doubt in my mind. So just hold fast to your faith. So that's a little background on me. MR, I'm a newcomer. Went to CCD as a kid, but just started reading again. What was Christian? What is CCD? What's my normal stream schedule? I generally come on sometime, start anywhere between 8 and 8:30. That's got to be flexible because I'm getting home from work. I'm putting the kids to bed, and and then settling in, because I do this, and then I watch baseball or play video games or whatever, or catch up on Nick's stream until bedtime. But I start, like I said, anywhere between 8 and 8:30. We do however long the stream ends up lasting. It's usually anywhere from a half hour to an hour. If I've got a guest on, like Eric Roll-On streams, so it's every other Tuesday. Last night was a regularly scheduled Eric stream. When Eric comes on, we're 2.5 hour streams, because we're covering a lot, we're talking a lot, and like I said, it's a lot of content, and I actually have, and that's awful for me because the next day I'm wasted, because it's weird, because you can have a conversation with somebody and it's just something, but when I have a conversation with somebody on stream, and afterwards I was talking about it, Nick said he could relate. I'm sure he can, but when you get off of a stream with somebody after having a conversation with them or interview or whatever with them, there's like a little bit of adrenaline that you're riding at the end. It takes you a little time to go to sleep, and but when it's just me in the chat, it's however long. Right now I'm doing about 2 to 3 chapters a night on the Bible read throughs, or I'm covering something on the news. The last one I think we did, there was a mega church called Dwell, and apparently they were out in Ohio, and apparently it's close to Ohio State University, and I don't like Ohio State University. Someone was making fun of them Buckeyes, and but was it a cult? And reading an article, and it was from the Daily Beast, so it's highly questionable source. But a lot of the things they were saying, when you read between the lines, there were still many red flags. So I did some commentary on it. I think that but it's another episode of a mega church doing weird things that aren't lined up with what the church should be doing. Just be good. I think the same way. I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people do. I would take my existence going out, winking out, if I as long as I knew my kids were saved, my kids could exist, and or friends of mine or people that I look up to that are good. Um, that I just feel do a better job at life than I do. As long as I knew something was there, I think I would take that L. Probably not happily, but at least with some sort of satisfaction. Catholic schools for public school kids. Okay. Um, my mom went to Catholic school, St. Gertrude's, just in Richmond. They've moved since, but my dad, her brothers went to Benedictine High School, and you know, she got cat. She's a Catholic until she met my dad, and then my dad was non-denominational. She started going to church, and then um, whatever she had been taught in Catholic school had not really taught her all of what was going on. So I think that's more of a failing of the Catholic Church, and the Catholic school than it is for Catholicism. Because if you get somebody like Raph on and you start talking to him, he educates himself on the Bible. He's got a mind like a steel trap to it for it. Apprende, there's definitely no doubt that God exists. As I said, I'm convinced that he exists and he is righteous, and that for some reason he loves us like you would love your kids, right? But but what's my fear, right? My fear is that I'm wrong. My fear is right and wrong. It may be hard at times, but he is here. Yeah, I've seen way too many things that just feel like you're being guided to go, okay. Because I used to be very much my belief was very much a hands off. God's taken a hands off approach after the Gospels, and after Revelation. Basically, God basically took a hands off approach to the development of society and mankind. But now, as I've matured, as I've experienced things more in my life, I see, oh, okay, he has a very real investment in us on an individual level. And there are many times where we are given an opportunity to um, be put in a position where we can take advantage. We have an opportunity to help somebody else out or help ourselves out in a way that would glorify Him, or like us, where we live right now in my hometown. Interesting story on that. We had we were going to, so we bought our first house, our starter house, me and my wife, and we had our first kid, but the school system wasn't all that great, and so we were like, okay, well, we need to move back. And also, her parents are getting older. They're still both alive. Are getting older, so they're going to have them move in with us. We're going to buy a house. We'll buy something big enough for them to move into. They can watch the grandkid and more kids that we have. Um, they can watch the grandkid free, and they can have time with them. We can keep an eye on them, make sure that they're taking care of us. They're taking care of our kids while we're gone. We save money on daycare. You know, they can rent out their house and have some income there. It was just very lucrative, made sense. And I get along with my in-laws very well, especially my father-in-law. He's just a very chill dude. And so we wanted a place that was close to where we worked, which was close to my hometown, but also close to where they live, so that they can still hang out with the people that they do on a regular basis and keep their social thing. So we found the location out in New Kent. which is a little bit. Which is if you're familiar with Virginia, it's in between Richmond and Williamsburg. Williamsburg, and that was Williamsburg's close to where my wife's from, and we found a nice little spot and everything, and we had everything. Like literally, we were moving into it, and everything fell through. It all fell through because somebody back in the 50s didn't record a didn't record who owned a plot of land between the state maintained road and the private road that our house was on. And while most people ignored it for years, once the housing crisis hit and everybody started to pay more attention to the rules that they'd been ignoring for years, then they started to be more picky about it. And they're like, hey, um, nobody knows who owns this, so you're technically landlocked. There's no deeded easement to your house. And so it became this big thing. The owners were terrible about it, and it was the final straw in some of their behavior. And I said, we're not getting this. We're not going to do this house, even if everything clears. Which my dad, being handling a lot of local stuff like that, said that it was probably going to take a year for them to get an engineer out there to survey it, get plans together, go through records, make a presentation to the local board, let them approve it, the county planner approve it, and then get all this stuff done. I was like, no. At the time, we had planned on living with my parents for 3 days and then moving into this house. And now we're a month in with my parents in one room, me, my wife, and our 1-year-old at the time, or almost 1-year-old. And my parents are there, and it's just too much. It's too much, right? And so, and then add on to all that stuff, the stress of what's going on buying a house is a huge investment. Monetarily, there's a lot of stuff going around, a lot of paperwork, and it's just ridiculous. And but I said, that's it. We're gonna find another place to live. And then, which kind of irritated me because we had land in my hometown to build on, and we didn't, specifically because we weren't going to do it. But now it was too late to build on the land because we weren't going to just sit for a year in our current situation. And but we found a house that was better, and it was close to my family. It was close to my family. It was close to everything in town. It was very close to where I work. And so it was perfect. It's this house. And what ended up falling into place is I reconnected with some people that I had been that I was still doing Bible study with, who after I left the last church that I had left, and I had given up on church people, the church, the place, and not God. But when I'd given up, and I was doing Wednesday night small groups with them, and they were nice, godly, righteous people, and I appreciated that. They were still in town. They were still going to the same church. And so I said, hey, let me go in there. Next thing you know, I'm in there. My wife's saved. My kids are growing up in there. I'm a deacon there, heavily invested in it. And we've got a school there that's great that my kids will probably be going to. And so, but that all fell into place just because of that instance, that asset. If we had moved into that house, we would have been much more disconnected to those folks. I probably never would have gone in there, and who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'm still not going to church. And once I got back in the church, and I was sitting down, listening to a sermon, you realize how much a good sermon, a good preacher, and a good regular attendance at church centers you, man. It gets you ready for that week. It gets you back into, the zone. So, so let me catch up on some super chats. Oof, Daily Beast. Yeah, it's terrible. Daily Beast is terrible. But it was the article was interesting, and it was an interesting read in there. But yeah, highly questionable. And I say that throughout the article. If you go back and watch that episode, the whole time I'm like, this is still the Daily Beast. So we don't know how true any of this is. Slapping rulers on knuckles is still terrifying. Yeah, yeah. I never got it at school. My parents did. My dad would take me and told my teachers in elementary school in front of me. He would take me up to the teacher when we were doing introductions. He would say, "You have my permission to beat my kid if he messes up." It never happened, and often not. And 29 times out of 30, I deserved it too, Nernea. But it didn't happen with me. Just Pewitt, not trying to get off the Jesus topic. It's a chill stream. But I heard you mention that you ride motorcycles. What do you ride? I just picked it up at the beginning of this year. I've actually mostly given it up, at least temporarily. I started riding back in 2004. I had a Gixxer 6, an '04 Gixxer 6, and then I upgraded that after I got back from overseas when I had a lot of money, more money than I had since saved up, and so I first thing I did is traded that thing in for a Gixxer 1000, 2007 Gixxer 1000, which to me in my mind is still my favorite bike. I had the most fun on it, and then I sold that when we bought our house because you start parsing down when you buy a house, you start parsing down on some of the other expenses. But I love that Gixxer, and the last bike I had was a Ducati Monster S4RS '04. No, '07 Ducati Monster S4RS, and that thing would fly. I think it was putting 130 horsepower down at the wheels, and or at the wheel, and it was a monster. The guy I bought it had done some work to it, and I love the ride on it. But that damn thing was broke all the time. It was, and some of my friends warned me about it. When you buy a Ducati, better learn how to work on it yourself because it's going to be in the shop all the time. And that was true. And I never had a problem with my Suzukis. So, what would I get next? My wife currently works very close to an Indian dealership, and the Indian Scout Bobber looks. I just like that old look, like the old, that old like World War II era look to those bikes. I think it's awesome. My favorite bike was my Gixxer 1000 though. Huge fan, but can't go wrong if you're a street bike fan. You can't go wrong with any of the heavy hitters out there. Yamaha R1, Kawasaki, I know BMW guys are BMW through and through. If you guys are from Nick's chat, you've seen Andrew Branca talk about his BMW. I got a buddy of mine. BMW guys swear by BMWs. They still don't know how to use their turn signal. So it's just like people who buy BMW cars. So Triumph, the '50s Triumph. I almost bought a Speed Triple when I was in the market and I was looking at the Ducatis, and maybe I should have gotten that. But they come and they go. Apprende, he will put you where you need to be, even if you take side roads. Yeah, and again, this is evident in the Bible as you read through it. It's just something you go through, and as you read through it, you find things that you can identify with. You're like, oh yeah, I've been there, or oh man, I've been the bad guy in that instance. There's a guy I brought on the show. His name's Wayne Dyer. He's local here. He's a really good apologetics guy, but his schedule is very busy right now. But I'm going to bring him on some more. But one of the things he did was he was talking about Joseph, right? Jacob's son, Joseph, and a lot of people talk about Joseph, but a lot of people forget that a lot of times we're Joseph's brothers and not Joseph, or a lot of times we're the villain by the way we act and not the good. Nico, hi Ricada, check, great show. Yeah, look, I'll grift viewers and subscribers off of that. I'm not interested in the money aspect, but the viewers and the interaction. Oh, I'll grift that off of Nick all the time, all day long. We did talk about him coming on for an abortion episode. where we discuss about that. He is absolutely down for it. So we just need to talk about. Uh, we just need to just schedule that out. And I was thinking maybe sometime around when the Supreme Court decision finally comes out, having that abortion topic. But again, I'm not going to bring Nick on when he's half dead after court streaming. So, um, but and that's why I felt kind of bad about it. I offered to reschedule. I mean, he didn't. He didn't. But I offered to reschedule when it became apparent that he was going to be streaming yesterday. But hey, look, he's going to be getting. He gets a few days of rest at least. Now that the Amber Heard thing is well settled, and he gets to kind of. He said he was going to go on his victory lap tonight, which is great. So, but it pays off. Grift off of that. Make money off of that. Um, so, but anyway, after the show ended, there's a couple of ideas I've got. Bring him on for an abortion chat. He is 100% down for that. He's, as he describes, small L libertarian. Kind of bringing him on to talk about that, how that reconciles with kind of biblical teachings, just his perspective on things. And there's one more thing. I can't remember what the other thing was. But this is stuff I approached him with about before. For a long time, I didn't tell him that I was going to be doing this, and I don't know when he actually realized that I was. He might have realized it when I reached out to Andrew or to Eric Rollon, and we started doing the stream. But I didn't want to ride his coattails for a long time, and then it became apparent to me that sometimes you just need to ask your buddy, if he'll come on, and just let him decide whether he wants to or not. Because look, breaking through whatever this YouTube algorithm thing, and I don't have enough time to put a lot of research into this. I don't have an intro yet. I don't have a logo. I don't have an outro. I don't have any of that. I don't have a fan. I think this is like a $40 mic and a $80 camera. Like I'm doing this I'm doing this kind of as a hobby, and I'll upgrade as things go along. But I wasn't going to dump a bunch of money into something and then have and then not get into it. I've got a $700 guitar over in the corner here that I bought that I don't hardly ever play, and my wife rightly reminds me of that because she would love for me to be able to play for her. She's very much a music fan. I before E holds true even for the Polsky. When we talked about the Triumphs, MR, you have a sidecar. I actually had a coworker at one point. He had one of the Urals, the Russian motorcycles. He had a sidecar. Took his kids to school in the sidecar. If I was a kid riding to school in a sidecar, I would feel like I was the man when I got out. Greg, watch your mouth. Joseph was perfect. Not perfect, but Joseph was a great boy. I do think that's an interesting. There's two routes to take with Joseph. You can think of Joseph as kind of an ass because look, he goes, I guess I got this brand new coat my dad gave me. He says my dad too, like in front of his brothers. I think I take the result of this is Joseph was just so sheltered by Jacob that he was just aloof. And he didn't realize that he was ticking his brothers off. And he would say these things and he didn't mean it. But he very well might have just been a brat, like you said. But I don't that's not what camp I'm in. I think Joseph was pretty a kind-hearted person from the beginning to the end. And but either way, I mean, he ends up playing a big and vital part of things. And it also, these people, we got the old Mormons, we've got the polyamorous people, and this other and people having talking. I don't know about co-parenting or whatnot, but when you look at much of the Old Testament with multiple wives and multiple kids from multiple wives, or even single kids from multiple wives, like Ishmael and Isaac, or Joseph and his brothers. Joseph's brothers beat him up, threw him down into a well, then sold him into slavery to his cousins. Multiple wives, multiple kids is not a recipe for anything but disaster. And then you can go talk to Solomon about that, because Solomon, remember, because his dad did that, and there was a lot of issues between his dad after his dad died and him becoming king, and then there was a lot of issues for him while he was king. Mo women, mo problems. Look, why why would you want more? Look, I love my wife to death. I can't handle more of her than I already have. I can't. I can't. She is great. She is great. Um, but I can't. I can only handle so much. Um, Going through here. God puts you around you and help put those around you to help you grow. Amen. Amen. I mean, I guess in my case, it's for my wife, or for my wife's case, it was me. For me, it was people that I've I've made lifelong friendships now with, and who I can lean on. If anything, Joseph was an ignorant brat. Jacob even got on him when he shared his dreams, but he grew just like his brothers. We all do. We all do. The lesson: mo women, mo problems. Mo women, mo problems. Envy knows no bounds. True. True. You will find people envious at the lowest, looking to somebody just a little bit better than off than them, and you will people with absolutely no reason to be envious for anything, and still envious of somebody who's got a little bit more. Money does not take away your problems. Megan, just so glad I found your channel. Thanks, Nick. Again, yeah, thanks, Nick. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And like I said, he'll come on for a couple of extra shows, at least for the time being. I've got him planned. I'll probably try to integrate more, but periodically. The biggest guest, the most repetitive guest I get on here is Eric. He's a co-host for the show every other week, and he very much wanted to be on the stream last night, but he is in the process of moving, and so that was very difficult. It made things very difficult, and he had just finished the actual travel portion of the move, and so I'm pretty sure he was just wasted as far as kind of like Nick at the end of a 10-hour live stream that he did after a 5-hour show where everybody was getting him to drink himself into the ground. Power Keg Greg, love the Joseph story though. Joseph's story is one of my favorites. Apprende, Nick helped me remember why I started my channel. Hobbies are not supposed to be stressful. Enjoy what you do so the energy would attract others. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's one of the things that I've reasons why I've actually stuck with this. The stream is, I get it, right? I get interacting with other people is fun. It's fun, and if you don't mind putting yourself on a camera out for the entire world to see, then there you go. Then you can. Then all you have to do at that point is find people who actually want to talk with you. But I've got people want to talk. People want to talk. That's great. I agree. He was naive, not ignorant. Greg saying naive might be a better term. I think he was. Yeah, I think he was just naive and maybe just aloof and just not picking up. And you run into people like that. They don't understand that they are so socially awkward or so socially unaware that they're pissing people off by them just talking, because they're just happy about what they have. Renee, moving is not fun. Brian Abernathy, another flawed man found your channel. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being part of the chat. Nerneyev, David is greater than David is better than Joseph. I disagree. I like Joseph more than David, but it's not by a wide margin. The more coming out of doing this reread because I'm learning more just rereading. It's just like reading a book again. You pick up parts that you don't, and reading it out loud and kind of contemplating on it as I'm reading it out and saying it out loud. Um, dude, Moses is my boy. Moses is my boy. Like the man is like um he's just like a guy that God just chills with up there, and God's looking at him. You think about him with you know, at the beginning of fulfilling the covenant that he has started that God talked about with Abraham. And he's just they say imagine sitting with God on the mountain and God telling you his plans for people and just being in that presence and being just a singular human being at that point. And then I mean, what better feel the next best feeling I think that you could get from that might be Solomon when he asks for wisdom to help his people, to help God's people, and how and knowing that your decision when you were asked, when you were put on the spot, and you were given the responsibility of being able to choose whatever you want of God, and he chose something that made God just so happy. It's so happy. That's my but I know. And look, I don't know if there's any wrong answers here, but this is where I could be wrong. I could be wrong. David, look, David does a lot of good things. David does a lot of good things. I'm excited because we're going to be talking about my boy Joshua soon. Once we finish up with Deuteronomy, we're going into Joshua. Judges is full of is just awesome read through. But once you get into Samuel, you start getting into David. And David's just such a great David's just such a great narrative to follow because he starts off young. He does these great deeds because it's just through faith. He becomes king. He screws up, but instead of just falling into that screw up and giving up like Saul did before him, he comes through. He acknowledges what he did. He strives to do better. I mean, in many ways, David's the most relatable hero, I guess, because that's what we want to do. We even when we achieve great things and we're giving these blessings like salvation, like Christ's sacrifice for us. We're given those things, but we still manage to squander it, screw up. But true people of the faith, we understand. I've done something wrong. Let me do what I can. Do what I can. And you have the David and Goliath confrontation very early, and then you have his run through of his adventures with Jonathan, which I only recently found out that the rainbow community has been trying to use that as an example of homosexuality in the Bible, and that is, look, David was a warrior king, right? Wasn't afraid to fight. You're gonna go up to heaven and you're gonna bump into David before you get into the dates. He goes, "You said what about me and Jonathan?" Please. That's not the fight I'm gonna pick. if I'm trying to prove a point of mine. I'm not. But I think that's detestable. That's such a stupid thing. That's the same people who try to, and I'm a big Tolkien nerd. I'm a big Tolkien nerd, but people who try to take the Frodo and Sam, and the hobbits, their friendship, they try to make this into a gay thing. It's June, by the way, guys. So everybody just pray for people. But it's not. And if you've had a close friendship with a person, with someone of the same sex, gender, whatever you're going to call it, if you're a biologist. But if you have a close friendship that you've had since childhood or whatever, but you're just very close to them. It's almost like a sibling, but you love them, right? you love them and you're close to them. And that's what um that's what Tolkien's describing in that regard. And and I relate for it because he's a world Tolkien's a World War I veteran. He makes these friendships. I'm assuming he had friendships in the trenches, like lots of us do in the military, where you're going through hardships and you make these bonds with people and you love them and you care about them. And but it's not that's not something limited to the military. That's like I said, that's something that you bonds you great you those bonds you make with people that you just end up becoming very honest and very open with. That doesn't mean you're opening your fly. So I think that stuff is dumb. I think that's trying to force your opinion and personal life choices that are sinful into something that's wholesome and ruining it. Power Keg Greg, also a big Jonah person. Love that message. Jonah's a great account. I love it. Um, he's he's such a whiner though. Moses is definitely my favorite, but Job keeps me humble. Job's always to me, Job's a standby when things are tough. Things are tough because it's always been worse. Somebody's had it worse than you and they've come through it all right. And Job is the prototype to go through there. So he's always he's always a good it's always a good book to go to. He's always good to look through. And God's response, that's going to be an interesting read through when we get to Job because there's a lot of monologuing. Like this is monologuing that'll put Ayn Rand to shame. MR David was my fave as a kid. Thought the Lion's Den was badass. That was Daniel. Daniel was the Lion's Den. Oh. You corrected. Oh yeah, with Daniel. Okay. Power Keg, take down that Nephilim like a champ. Yeah, you did. Brandon Jensen, good evening, dude. I enjoyed the conversation you had with Nick last night. I turned away from faith for a long time after a bad experience with my church as a kid. Like I said, I turned away from church for a long time. And it wasn't. I don't have a horrific account. That's one of the plans for the stream that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some. And that's a stream I'm thinking Eric is going to come on with. Raph will probably come on for that one too. It's going to be people and a good friend of mine or his wife is going to come on and talk about our bad experiences with churches and how that affected us and why we got through it. We powered through it and stuck with things. I think Raph went atheist for a little while when he was younger in our embarrassing teens and early 20s. I don't know Eric's story. I'm interested to hear his. I think he did something similar. I think he did something similar to Raph. My friend went to a church that had it wasn't a mega church, but it was a very large church of the city, and there was a sexual scandal and there was a financial scandal there, and it was earth shattering. And they were very involved in that church, and so that was difficult for them. For me, I went to a very cliquey church, and I never fit into it. So I wasn't all that attached to it, but my brother got very attached to it, and he got into a little bit of trouble. They absolutely turned their back on him and then tried to go after him later on. But I'll get into that. I'll save that story for that stream. And I guess I'll have to start planning that one out. So I just need to find out from my buddy if it's him or his wife who wants to come on and talk about their account. And get with Raph. Raph's the hardest one to nail down. You see how quick he got out. He got out of that stream. He's a tired boy. He got a full schedule. He's got to lift weights, raise his kid, love his wife, save America. Be a trad. Oh, and say his litanies and his rosary. So, yeah. But glad it sounds like you're coming back, Brandon, and glad you're commenting on the stream. There nayeth not a real need unless you read or real fan unless you read the Silmarillion. True, and I have. And the Children of Hurin, and I need to read the one I haven't read is the full Ballad of Beren and Luthien. I want to read that. Um, that yeah, I love all the Middle Earth stuff. All the Middle Earth stuff. Mr. Job reminds me of my father. That's quite a dad you got there. That's good. Always good to have. It's always good if your dad, if somebody good reminds you of your dad. Porcupine Mayhem. Can't wait for Ecclesiastes. Super emo, but also super uplifting and sending. Yeah. I mean, is a little emo, but it's just amazing when you go through it and you just talk through it the whole time, and it's great. Josh Brown, who is a church friend of mine. Josh Brown, Joshua is my favorite book. Imagine that. But I also love Paul and how God turned his life around. So Paul is actually the guy I struggle the most to relate to. But he has the best redemption story, like penultimate butthead, and really just doing very evil things to the early Christians. Goes from being a bad villain to a cornerstone of Christianity, and author of most of the books of the New Testament. But a lot of his writing is hard for me to get into. A lot of his writing is hard for me to get into. Ballad of I'm sorry. Ecclesiastes is my favorite book of the Bible. Humbling meditation. Whatever humbles you is good. Whatever humbles you in the Bible is good because it gets your mind in the right. It's good to have confidence in yourself, but also to be good to have confidence in yourself, but also good to, but you also have to moderate that with humility. Ballad of Beren and Luthien is a collection of 6 fragments. Well, I think that's what Children of Hurin was too. Then his son came through and kind of cleaned it up or whatever. Kind of like how was it Brian Hebert? Right, Brian Herbert did with his Frank Herbert's Dune, which I read. I've read all the Dune books. I take the unpopular opinion that the prequels were better. I like what his son did with the books better than Frank. I like the original Dune. It's cool, but then it gets Dune series gets weird. And I think that he's got great characters, and they just go off in weird directions. Where I'm like, oh, I can't wait till they do to see more of their story, and their story just does something weird, or it just ends. And I couldn't get into it. I'm much more a fan of, I'm much more a fan of the Butlerian Jihad series, like Vorian Atreides and all that other stuff. MR, firefighter. Oh, you're talking about your dad. Firefighter responded to 9/11, died of cancer later, among other stuff. Not to bring the stream down, just to show that you can keep faith through hard things. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to deal with. Died of cancer. My assumption there is that some of that cancer was somewhat related to being a firefighter responding to 9/11, like so many other firefighters. Yeah, it's a difficult thing, but if I don't know if you have kids yet, but when you have kids, it's something to say, your grandfather. We talk about people doing heroic things. We were talking last night on the stream with Nick about police officers not going into a building with one gunman and a bunch of children. One gunman. Firefighters in mass just ran into buildings that had just had planes that were just getting ready to collapse, and planes crashed into them, and there's fire and there's dust, and you can't see hardly anything, but you run. Other people are running the other way. You run towards the danger. Because that's what you train for. This is why we consider these professions selfless professions. This is why you're supposed to be wearing that badge, wearing your wearing your name tape in the military, wearing that uniform with pride and with a sense of courage to it because you need that courage. So that means when you show up to a the disaster that is 9/11, you're running towards things. And you might know at that point, I might not be walking away um, from this thing alive. You probably didn't have it in the back of his mind that stuff would go back behind him and would be a more of a lingering disease that he would have to deal with. I'm again assuming that the cancer was related to responding to 9/11. But I mean, knowing that this decision could cost you your life, but you have to do it because you have to save others. We have soldiers that literally will jump on a grenade to help their buddies, to save their buddies. I mean, I like I said, the whole idea that that there was a police officer that didn't run in for Parkland, and that this Uvalde, um, that's it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing to me. My brother's a police officer outside a major city, and I don't think at all. Of course, he's also combat veteran, but I mean, I couldn't imagine him just stopping and not running in there. I mean, I guess being cautious about going in enough to, like, you're not just running into a door, and your guy's right there and he takes you right down and you didn't do anything. But the fact that you just take enough time to assess the situation and then you go in to neutralize the threat, and maybe you don't win, but at least you tried. Especially when there's kids. I mean, what are the babies. Uvalde, yeah, Uvalde. Sorry, thank you for correcting me there. So, um, wade hard, play hard. Not religious, so I can't follow the conversation very well. I went to a Christian church for a while as a teen, though, and it was a good experience. Setting up donuts and coffee every morning was fun. A lot of that stopped in COVID. We still haven't gotten. Look, one of the things I used to enjoy about church was going into the lobby in the foyer, and one of the old ladies had made a dish of breakfast and eating that because I didn't eat before came to church. I haven't had that. I haven't had that. But look, the best way to follow the conversation, I guess, if you're interested in doing this, when we do these Bible readings, it's just me reading the text and then responding to, okay, this is what I read. This is what I'm taking away from it. You can read it and take something away differently. And that's kind of what I want to see when we do those readings. If any of you guys are out, I know this is a chill stream, but if any of you guys are interested in doing these things, it's like, hey, I read that and I see it differently from you. Kind of like, I think David's better than Joseph, or I favor David more than Joseph, or I think Joseph was a brat versus whatever. It is absolutely devastating news. Like, we had a sign up sheet, right, for different people to sign up, and some people, the younger folks, like, well, you bringing donuts in was phoning it in, but everybody's still enjoying it. But when you get like the old ladies bringing their homemade breakfasts in, dude, it was like, you get the greasiest, best flavored food on the planet. It's awesome. It's the best. It's the best. Look, there's no sense in eating. There's no sense in eating before you get to church because you need it. And then, you know, I'm still waiting for this to come back. I'm still waiting for that to come back. Maybe I'll bring that up in the next deacon meeting. We need to bring the trays of food out. It's terrible. It's terrible that they're gone. Brandon Jensen, yes, sir. I still consider myself agnostic, but I'm looking for some sort of truth as the world gets more uneven and chaotic. I see a lot of truth in the Bible still, but because the Bible is the truth, I know that I'm biased in that regard. But again, that's why I said you go through it and you start applying it and you understand where these fundamentals come in. And the fundamentals are wholesome at their core because that's what the intention behind them was. Josh says, I need to read the Tolkien books. Seen the movies, you shall not pass. Now, if you've seen the movies, the books are dry. You just have to remember this. Tolkien is very descriptive. Everything has a backstory and some sort of relatability, and it takes a while. And there's a lot of singing. There's a lot of singing. Well, not to say there's a whole lot of singing, but there's singing, and when they're singing, they sing for a while, like a few pages. But it's a fun read. I'm more into audiobooks. It's easier for me to fit that in because I can focus on it easier. And when you have kids and or a job or something like that, a lot of that stuff cuts into time that you wouldn't be able to get with your um, with reading. And now the biggest thing cutting into my audiobook time is Nick streams. So thanks, Nick. Thanks for ruining that. I still haven't. I'm on the last book of the Wheel of Time series, and I haven't finished it because I'm listening, watching your stupid streams. Thanks, Amber Heard. Nerneath said Kevin and Brian are more traditional modern writers. I don't like it. Plain sci-fi. Frank was breaking ground and experimenting. Yeah, and I actually watched John Carter this weekend for the first time. Very interested in reading that. I had no idea that what's his face, the guy who wrote Tarzan, also wrote like the preeminent sci-fi book. That Dune, that Star Wars, and all. It's kind of like a, but again, it's very similar to Dune in that it's Lawrence of Arabia almost. But Frank, I like Frank's world building, and I like the world that he created. I just don't, and I like a lot of the characters he created. I just don't like where he led them all. I just thought it was weird, and maybe that's good for a sci-fi. And I'm not a pure sci-fi fan. I enjoy a lot of sci-fi, but sci-fi can be so dark sometimes. I mean, not so dark, but so depressing sometimes. But I mean, that's part of the escapability factor of it of sci-fi, that it's looking at, sometimes it's bleak. Coffee and donuts being gone is actually devastating news. Yeah, we've talked about that. If things are back to normal for snacks and stuff in some areas. In mine, I haven't seen a mask or heard of anybody with Lacoof in 6 months. Yeah, yeah. The only people I know who still wear masks, and I do know a couple, are folks who are immunocompromised or have some sort of significant underlying factor where they need to. And I respect that, because it is, look, if you've got a comorbidity factor, then it is something to be scared, something to be very scared of. I have a good buddy, oddly enough, moved back to Canada. Well, his wife's from Canada, so she moved back to Canada. We went with them. Their daughter had cancer at a very young age, and she still, they live in fear that she's going to go. That she does have a compromised immune system. Number one, and two, that they're always afraid that it's going to come back. And so when COVID came in, dude, that's tough, because imagine being scared that you're going to bring it back to your or not emotionally, your immunocompromised kid, and you kill your kid with COVID. I mean, like I said, they had blessings that she's survived, and she's doing well now. But and that's a scary, when it's your kid's life on the line. That's a scary place to be. Josh, it's on my to be read list, along with 30 or 40 books. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's kind of like my Steam library. A lot of games I'm never going to get to. Brian, God bless the women of the church that cook. Just another blessing. It's amazing. It's amazing, dude. There is a lady, I love her to death. I give her a hug every time I see her. She makes the best chocolate chip cookies, and when they show up at a potluck, I am there. And my wife has to scold me to get me away so that other people can eat them. It's insane. Yeah, listen to Nick day after at 2 times speed, save time. I did that once, or I've done that twice now. It does save time, and it's too weird. Or I did it at 1.25 or whatever. Um, if the voice gets too weird, I get too weirded out. I read The Hobbit first, and then went to the first Lord of the Ring book. Man, it was intimidating. I read The Hobbit first, or I read the Lord of the Rings first, and then went to The Hobbit, and I was like, "What is going on here?" And then I realized, oh, that's right. The Hobbit he wrote The Hobbit for his kids. Nernath, forget the John Carter film. I've actually thought the film wasn't bad. I think that when I was looking back and I was researching it, I feel like a lot of people said the right thing. So the books were so groundbreaking and were so inspiring to other great writers, sci-fi writers that would come after him, that we did films about, like Star Wars and Dune. That when you see John Carter the movie, it looks just like every other sci-fi blockbuster. But I don't know. I haven't read the books yet. They are big. They are big on my list right now, though. After seeing the book, because we're seeing the movie because I'm like, there's good story behind this. It's good story behind this. So um, you can tell that storyline has good bones. And yeah, it was a little it was a little kind of, I don't know, kind of like a Marvel movie, right? There wasn't a whole lot of super deep moments in it, and it's mostly just action packed. But you could see the bones of that story were good, and so I'm sure those books are going to be good. Plus, he wrote Tarzan, right? So it's got to be good. Um, Johnny Depp should write a book and call it "The Day You Almost Caught Captain Jack Sparrow." Yeah, I've been seeing that around a lot. I think he should. I actually think he should do a movie about it. Cast himself as Johnny Depp. Have you read Stormlight Archive? No, I have not, Brandon. Just pew it. You need to. Oh, he's talking about. The spring and winter sales fill the stream queue quick. Oh man, yeah, yeah. And I got a lot of things on the wish list. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it as soon as it comes on sale. So, all right, we're a little bit over an hour 30. This has been awesome, guys. Thank you guys. Every single one of you have been part of it. We'll get in, and so before I sign off, so let's do a little bit of looking ahead. So last one I did was Deuteronomy 20, where we last left off on episode 69. Nice episode. So we run Deuteronomy 20. So we'll be in Deuteronomy 21. We'll do that tomorrow, possibly. So I've got a lot going on this week, business wise, that might take me away tomorrow. But I thought they might do it today. You can see I got some sun. I was, like I said, I was out crawling around on trucks all day. But it might take me away. But if I'm not at a work function, then I'll be here streaming tomorrow night at some time between 8 and 8:30. We will be on Deuteronomy 21, starting on Deuteronomy 21. We'll either go to from 21 to 22 or from 21 to 23. Ooh, I like this. The chapter Atonement for an Unsolved Murder. So we'll do a Bible reading there. And like I said, especially with a lot more eyes and a lot of you guys coming in to chat and finding this channel. That means I'm just going to have to get a little bit more responsible with bringing more guests on, because the guests are great, and they kind of break up all these other stuff and getting into some of these other topics that I've wanted to get into. The breakup of the Methodist Church is a big one. That's a big thing that's going on currently, and the Southern Baptist Convention and the crap that they're going through right now with all sorts of just you've got some wokeness is rearing its easy head. Sexual abuse is rearing its ugly head. People are apologizing for both sides on that. You've got the abortion issue, just splitting it. And of the Baptists, of all of the places, the Baptists are conflicted on on abortion, at least the big convention, which I find is weird. So, so we've got some topics to talk about. I've got a couple of guys that I've connected through Twitter who might be good. I brought in an Orthodox guy. I've talked about Orthodoxy, Thaddeus Patrick. You can look at his stream. I brought Hans Feeney. Check out his YouTube channel, Lutheran Satire. It's hilarious if you're a churchgoer. Just watching some of that stuff. He came on for a stream. I need to bring him back on to talk about Lutheranism. So, but yeah. What? How are they conflicted? MR, look. So, what happens, I think, is it's easy to do to be a proponent for something. It's kind of like the dog chasing the car. What happens when the car gets to an intersection and stops and the dog catches up to the car? What does he do with it? That's what some folks are like with this issue, with the abortion issue. Okay, now we might be able to criminalize it. Now what do we do? Now we're worried about losing seats because people don't like it. Like Narnath said, they got wokies in the upper echelons. They've, you know, one of the things I say, you know, we pick on Catholics a lot, especially because they've had their pedophile issues go on. They just like it. They've got the biggest target. The media has the biggest boner for those guys. Because that's a huge church and it's easy to poke at them because they're so big. They'll have the most most opportunities for scandal. And so you know, so they bear the brunt of all that. Well, Southern Baptist is huge in America. So they've got their own issues. But as we've seen, that stuff happens more often in public school and other places than it does in the church. However, it's more salacious. It's more of a hit at Christianity, at wholesomeness. If you can take something that's supposed to be good and bring it down. That said, but yeah, they've got wokies up there, as your Nath said, and yeah, even if they do like Marian, look, we make fun of the Marian idols all the time. I'm not a Catholic, but here's the thing, and this will be the last part I get into with this on tonight. What is the theme of what I'm doing here on the stream? It's very much in the C.S. Lewis theme of mere Christianity. I don't agree with a lot of things that the Catholics do, that a lot of Catholics believe, but I can relate to a lot of things, and I've met some very, very righteous Catholics. Same thing with Lutherans, Anglicans, Presbyterians. I think Calvinism is something I do not understand it, but man, I know there's some Calvinists in there that just love the Lord, right, and are fundamentally adhering to him as best as they can. There's disagreements on some doctrine, on some theology, but they're not praying to the God of many genders like you get some folks do. We got a mere Christianity for traditional fundamental Christian beliefs, and we're all fighting modernization. And so that is that's where we go. And yeah, I mean, look, we're all a little crazy, man. We're all kind of crazy. My dad used to say, a normal person is just somebody you don't know all that well. Anyway, all right, guys, this has been awesome. This has been great. I'm glad you guys are piling in. Follow Semper Marine, follow Christ and strive to be like him. Fail and try again. Amen. Amen to that. So you guys be good, and we're gonna go. We're going to talk some more. If you keep tuning in. And hey, if you've got content or something you think you want to see an episode about, put it in the chat. Maybe we'll do it. I'm always looking for content. Bible readings are sometimes filler. So anyway, everybody, good night. God bless.